Hello everyone, this is part 60 of What If Naruto and Hinata trained together and a spark happened, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Pain's human path was not entirely surprised when his grand request was met with suspicion and doubt. The Reaper joined his troops, and the two stupid brothers followed her like brain-damaged puppies. But most of the other rogue ninjas watched him with varying degrees of suspicion. I understand your hesitation, Pain's voice dripped with sincerity. After all, there are just over 100 of us. The Leaf Ninjas should outnumber us 3 or even 4 to 1. Attacking their stronghold against that kind of numeric advantage would be insanity. But there is something you don't know, something I'm sure the Hokage did not want you to know, so you would remain docile. He sounded as if he were sharing a vital secret, but the truth is that the entire ninja world is at war. My teacher and leader, Guki Namikaze, has raised an army that rivals the power of the 4 remaining great villages. And yes, I said 4, because even now the rain, mines, and cloud villages are under Guki-sama's control. Whispers passed through the crowd. The name of the rogue who had defied the conclave of shadows for nearly 2 decades was a legend among the missing nin. Beyond that, the potential implications of such a war were not lost on the smarter criminals. Right now, even as we speak, the majority of the Leaf Ninjas are helping to defend their allies or trying in vain to assault our forces. He increased his volume. From our earlier scouting, there are no more than 150 shinobi left to defend the Leaf. And many of those are genin, too weak or too green to send to war. So any edge they have in numbers, we will more than make up for in skill, in experience, and in determination. His expression darkened. This is your chance to secure a place for yourself in the new regime. You may flee now, and we will not stop you, but know that when the war ends, no matter which side is the victor, you will still be hunted as criminals. Stand with us, and you will leave this battle as free men and women. So I ask you again, his tone switched back to rousing sincerity, who will stand with me against the Konohagakure? A cheer went up through the deviant mass. The human path stepped back, and the black Shizokus moved forward under the direction of the Naruto path, distributing their extra weapons to the new converts, and working to establish a chain of command. I almost bought that, the Reaper told the human path surreptitiously, brandishing Griffin's claw to reaffirm the feel of her trident. What do you mean? He asked innocently. Even if we have the edge in skill, the Konohagakure still has its defenses, she answered, not to mention the fact that they are armed to the teeth, and most of your new army will be lucky to get a kunai and couple of shurikens from these fancy new Shizokus of yours. He did not answer, but studied her face with a mildly curiosity. Nagato realized he had never seen her without her armor of ninja crests before. But the real lie was that they would have a place in Guki's world, she added. The best most of these can hope for is to become a blue or red Shozaku. And that's if they aren't outright. We both know Namikaze's stance on R, mind control, and the S of civilians. And we both know he's nowhere near as kind-hearted as the Leaf. He frowned at her, but the Reaper just smirked back. Oh, don't worry, I won't tell them, she purred. I doubt there are more than a handful among them that don't deserve whatever fate they find. After all, they are ninjas. She said the last word like it was a deadly insult. Pain nodded, and he and the Reaper also began to interact with the convicts. Sakura tapped the shaft of an arrow impatiently against her knee, as the 2 copies of Nitsuki danced around each other. Both fought like bodyguards, focusing more on defense, with offensive techniques were not designed to K, but to disable an opponent for a quick escape. The volatile medic had almost reached the point of trying to knock out both of the supposed sand kunoiki, and dealing with the consequences, when her radio crackled to life, and Nitsuki's damaged device whined pitiably as it tried in vain to fulfill its purpose. All 3 women froze, and stared at the working communicator. Quote. If Naruto Dono or anyone else can hear this, please help. Sol completed her call for help weakly. Sakura reacted openly to the ninja squirrel's familiar voice, and both Natsukis realized that if the younger woman knew the source of the plea, it was probably genuine. Go. The Nitsuki on her left turned to the Leaf medic, her icy blue eyes locked on the archer's green orbs, and firmly instructed, Go help Hinata, Sakura-san. I can't do that, Tsunde's apprentice balked uncertainly. I can't leave you alone, not against Kohaku. The copy who had spoke suddenly began to change. Kohaku's long, blue-black hair replaced Nitsuki's shorter, sandy locks as the Jinchuriki returned to her default guise. If you go to rescue Hinata, I swear on my life that, so long as my battle with Nitsuki of the Sand Village remains one-on-one, I will not turn invisible, change my shape, or use more than one, or two tails of the chameleon's power, Kohaku pledged, shocking both Nitsuki and Sakura. And the former grass ninja was not finished yet. I'll even give you a few minutes to treat Nitsuki-san's W, Sakura-san. Why would you do this? Nitsuki demanded. Obviously, I think I can still defeat you with those restrictions and I want to get rid of Sakura-san, Kohaku admitted freely, but just as importantly, I want Sakura-san to save Hinata-chan. Why? Both of her opponents asked dubiously. There are only two people I have ever hated enough to wish on a one-on-one duel with Madara. The Jinchuriki shuddered as she contemplated that, those being the previous leader of the grass, and Madara himself. Beyond them, I wouldn't let anyone else fight Madara alone. Especially not a woman, and especially not a member of my extended family, or eventual family member, I suppose. Even if she is on the other side. Madara might be a necessary evil for our plans, Kohaku added vehemently, but that doesn't mean I don't intend to K him the instant he outlives his usefulness. Go, the real Nitsuki said softly, and Sakura blinked at her in surprise. If half of what I have heard about that Uchiha is true, then Kohaku-san is right. Then the ice user grinned ironically. Besides, I began serving as Gaara's bodyguard when he was still the host of the One Tails. If I can't handle her using only 1/3 of her power, and sealing her two strongest abilities, I don't deserve my position. All right, Sakura agreed, though her voice still held some hesitancy. She slipped the arrow she had been playing with back into her quiver, and shouldered her bow, before approaching the paused combatants. She stopped in front of Nitsuki, and handed her ally a food pill, before beginning to work on her W. As the medic worked on restoring the frostbitten patches of skin and closing the gashes in the sand kunoiki's leg and side, she grabbed Nitsuki's gaze, and rolled her eyes to the side. The elder Jonin looked surprised, but then she smiled slightly, and nodded. Sakura turned away from Nitsuki, having done all she could without spending a much larger portion of both chakra and time. The W was smaller, and what remained was mostly scabbed over. The healer took 3 quick steps, and ended face to face with Naruto's aunt. Kohaku tensed slightly, but Sakura placed her hand over the Jinchuriki's punctured torso, and began to close the W. After the medical jutsu ended, the leaf Jonin handed the grass renegade a food pill. Though she considered it for a moment, Kohaku finally bit into the supplement. Why? The shapeshifter asked in honest confusion. The terms you offered were too generous, Sakura answered. I had to even the scale. Kohaku nodded gratefully, and Sakura added sharply, but since your transformations don't heal you, I can still use the W on your thigh to tell you two apart, when Hinata and I get back. The Jinchuriki chuckled appreciatively, and the medic raced away at high speed, disappearing over the side of the restaurant. Shall we? Nitsuki prompted with a modest smirk. After you, Kohaku grinned back. The sand kunoiki fashioned a sphere of intense cold, and hurtled it at Guki's wife. Kohaku slid narrowly out of the way, and countered by turning the tiles under Nitsuki's feet into a grasping claws. The iron chakra of the Asura path stabbed through Gaara's sand barricade, and scored a C on his right cheek that went deep enough to scratch to the bone. The Kazekage dragged in his scattered ammo as quickly as he could, pulling it under pain. Suten, Raindrop Senbon, Neji attempted to distract her from his ally's action by crafting a water jutsu. But the advantage he gained from the natural precipitation was offset by the now missing ring and pinky fingers on his right hand. One of Pain's earlier attacks had claimed the digits, and only Gaara's intervention had saved the other two. The sea were clean, and both men understood if they could end the fight quickly, one of the field medics could probably reattach the fingers. Or, as increasingly appeared to be the case, if the two young men could at least survive, a master healer like the Hokage or one of her two apprentices might be able to regrow them. Without the digits, Neji's ability to shape his energy through hand signs had been severely reduced. He had mostly made up for that with the Hyuga clan's ninjutsu and taijutsu, but now he pulled together enough focus and chakra to change the droplets falling on the Asura path into combat needles. Tetsuten, Chrome Shell Jutsu, pain indicated pig, dog, and ram, creating a bubble of shining steel chakra around herself, stopping both Neji's raindrop senbon and Gaara's sand coffin. She stepped out of the grasping silicate, her metallic barrier unmarked by either attack. She passed the body of a leaf kunoichi who neither Gaara nor Neji had recognized. When she attempted to help the two Jonin, Pain had see the interloper down without hesitation but with an odd look of distaste. Though the three fighters each tracked the even increasing clamor in the western part of the Rain Village, no more of the invaders broke through to help the Kazekage and his temporary teammate. I suppose it is too late to take you up on your offer to take this battle inside. The former Jinchuriki of the One-Tails asked without a hint of irony or sarcasm. He pulled back the sand that had piled around her bubble, but his flagging energy and the weight of the water it had absorbed kept the material plastered to the ground, instead of flying through the air as it normally would have. I'm sorry, but no, the Asura path surveyed them carefully. In the shape the two of you are in, it won't make any difference. At this point our best hope is to remain out in the open and pray that someone on your side finds us. Someone with skill that is. Neji bristled at the insult to his fallen comrade, even as Pain allowed her defensive technique to lapse. Our best hope. Gaara sounded curious, inclusive. Your best hope for survival, she clarified, and my best hope for a renewed challenge. Neither man looked happy to hear that, yet neither could deny the accuracy in her words. Neji slipped a food pill out of a pouch and began to gather chakra from another mountain crusher, while Gaara created an umbrella of air chakra to dry his sand as he gathered it and helped keep the water off it for his next strike. They're coming. Tsunade set aside the Hokage's crystal ball, and looked up at the assembled team leaders. Yamato, Shizune, Hana Inuzuka, Yugao Azuki, Choza Akamaiki, Saburo Takamaiki, and Tomi Arashikage were the only active Jonin left in the village besides herself, since Homura's betrayal left him and Danzo D, and Koharu hospitalized just over an hour before. The rest of the temporary captains were Tokujo rank, except for two Chunin who had not yet chosen to participate in the trials yet. And the majority of the defenders were Genin with a precious few Chunin-level shinobi. Before the Hokage could further instruct her lieutenants, a young girl rushed into the meeting room. Though she appeared to be no more than 10 years of age, she wore a standard jumpsuit uniform, minus the Chunin vest. And instead of the spiral leaf of a full Land of Fire ninja, she wore a headband with a much more realistic carving of a leaf. She slipped through the adults, and handed a note to Tsunade, before smartly saluting and slipping away. Given the danger posed by the criminal legion, the last Sannin had even asked the academy students who were in their final year to help. Most had jumped at the chance, too young and foolhardy to fully grasp the threat. Tsunade was neither desperate nor cruel enough to assign them to the front lines, but instead had them carrying supplies and messages. She had also called up the Konoha's Special Defense Forces, a small group of shinobi who were allowed to retire without being decommissioned in exchange for swearing oaths which prevented them from spreading their retained knowledge, and called for them to fight for the village in the event of a dire emergency. In theory they were the Leaf's hidden line of defense. In practice there were currently fewer than a dozen of them, and most had allowed their skills or physiques to degrade, or both. Still, they were better than nothing, so Tsunade put them in charge of the children, and had them take the gopher jobs closest to the walls. Alright, you guys don't need me micromanaging you right now, she sighed angrily after reading the missive. Get to your positions, prepare any other traps you think are appropriate, and keep an eye open so they don't try to surround us. Dismissed. She waited until they had all left, waving off Shizune and Yugao when the two stopped with questioning looks. Once she was alone, she reached for the speakerphone in the middle of the room, and dialed. Mara, the simple, no-nonsense name offering emerged from the phone. Mara, it's the Hokage, I just got your note. And you don't sound too happy about it, Tsunade, the programmer noted without bothering with any sort of polite speech. You said you could get the negative chakra reaction seal up and running, the Sannin reminded her. I also said from the beginning that I would be brutally honest with you, the civilian scientist countered. I told you having that Fuinjutsu completed, installed, and tuned might be possible in 3 to 4 years. And despite the fact you've only given me 2, my team has the initial placement and setup of the Jutsu web nearly finished. Then we can use it. I suppose, Mara answered sarcastically, if you don't mind errant bursts of anti-chakra destroying the village's other defenses or disabling your people on the walls. I didn't think you had this sharp of a tongue when I hired you, Sunid noted with a hint of amusement. I had just been and then accidentally rescued by two strange kids, the younger woman shot back, you'll forgive me if I was a little shell-shocked. So we can't use it. Not reliably, the scientist sounded mildly apologetic, though I could have my people remove the safeties and flood the matrix. We could cover the entire border with a blanket of negative chakra. The summoning seals and everything else would need to be replaced after, and I could only guess at how far into the village it would spread. But that might work as an emergency measure, the Hokage pondered. All right, Mara, can I get you to head to command and control and monitor things there? Whatever you want, boss, the civilian sounded only mildly exasperated as she agreed. The line went D, and Sunid steepled her fingers as she looked at the map. I guess the best thing for now is to wait and see what Payne's next move will be, the leader of the Leaf decided cautiously, looking at the spots she had marked, indicating the approximate placement of Payne's 103 warriors. Though the crystal ball could not track the Shizokus, the positioning of the two Paynes and the 81 released prisoners let her fill in the blanks. Assuming that's not some sort of trap, too, she reminded herself. What are you going to do? The Deva Path asked, Yahiko's normally smooth voice rasping slightly in repressed hurt. Go ahead, Naruto, Kakashi instructed easily. Are you sure, sensei? The teen hesitated, glaring hatefully at Pain. Our goal is in the Raikage's castle, and Hinata is our best scout, Kakashi reminded Uzumaki, using his teacher's voice, and Madara is pretty high on our list of secondary objectives. So you backing up Hinata and taking Uchiha out is a threefold win for us. Besides, I should be able to handle this guy now, the copy ninja decided confidently. You think so? The first Pain sounded unconvinced. Your right arm is worthless. You have some pretty substantial internal B. And you have spent a lot more chakra than I have. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that even one-on-one, I've got the advantage. Get out of here, the Sharingan user instructed, I'll catch up with you as soon as I can. Naruto bobbed his head once, and took off, heading straight for the distant structure without any care for the previous route. Yahiko waited until the young man was gone, and then raised his left hand before his face, his pointer and middle fingers extended. Heaven release, Tenshi no Tsubasa, the Deva Path stated, and 3 pairs of feathered wings extended grandly out of his back. Kakashi recalled the wings from Pain's escape during the diversionary attack on the leaf, but also remembered Nagato's fragment using a different incantation. The half-dozen extra limbs flapped lazily, and Yahiko lifted into the air, hovering rather than flying. Going to chase Naruto? Kakashi asked, or maybe warn Guki. You misunderstand, Kakashi, the Deva Path admonished him, these wings are not physical, nor are they just for movement. He plucked out one of the feathers, and tossed it almost casually. The pinion drifted through the air, until it brushed up against Kakashi's shoulder. Suddenly, gravity tripled around the white-haired Jonin, almost forcing him down to his knees. Each feather is a tiny Shinra Tensei or Bansho Tenon, Pain explained, though weaker than normal, they provide me with greatly increased mobility, and they do not take any time to recharge. A primal roar erupted to the south of the Konohagakure. Years, or in a few cases decades, of patient anger exploded. There was no organization, no strategy in their approach. Instead, the mob of convicts and Shizokus moved like a vicious amoeba, pulsing towards the wooden barricade surrounding the ninja stronghold. Then the mass split into 4. Though Pain did not trust the supposed weaknesses in the Leaf's defenses, his 2 paths and the Reaper agreed that there was too much information in Homura's report for it to all be fake, so they focused on the areas of medium resistance. As they surged forward, the Leaf shinobi braced to meet the assault. Look, it's just who we were hoping for, Choza Akamaki rumbled darkly, as the one-eyed Pain approached their position. All right, let's take snake formation. His 3 Genin students lined up behind him, hiding behind his great bulk. The size-shifting clan leader locked his attention on the Naraka path, and expanded his fist to twice its natural size. The Naraka path noticed Akamaki's glare, smirked confidently, and shifted his course. Nagato's fragment ran up the wooden wall and vaulted over the spiked palisade, and shook his head in mock dismay as Chose's giant hand arced towards him. Armor of Pain, he intoned softly, absorbing the force of the punch. Yup, that's what we thought, the Leaf Jonin agreed as the nearly identical Takamaki cousins leapt out from behind him. Each genin unleashed 2 handfuls of oddly tinted needles. Pain continued to rotate his head side to side as he and the 2 teens dropped to the platform. You think I didn't know you 2 were part of his team? Pain asked in honest disappointment, that I didn't expect you to try to poison me again. I've already taken an Akatsuki antidote, and have more at the ready. That's why those senbon aren't poisoned, Keiko Takamaki shot back triumphantly. They're coated with all sorts of different pain K, from concentrated versions of over-the-counter drugs, to surgical-grade anesthetics. Also you won't be able to feel this. 8 trigrams, 2 palms, a high, clear voice suddenly announced behind Pain. Sakura took Kohaku's parting advice, and snuck around to the northwest corner of the Raikage's manor. As described by both the rebels and her sympathetic opponent, she found one of the 2 secondary entrances to the fortress. The secluded gate was guarded by 1 red and 3 blue Shizokas. She moved cautiously into a tree overlooking the entrance, and drew her bow. Her arrows felled the lieutenant and one of the sergeants before they recognized the thrum of her weapon. The second intermediate warrior had started to look for her. The last blue Shozaku had his gladius out before she was able to release her 4th projectile, and he see it from the air, surprising her slightly. He signed around his weapon's hilt, and unleashed his jutsu before she could retrieve another arrow again. Fire style, physical blaze jutsu, he intoned, launching a 1-foot diameter, 3-foot-long cylinder of dense yellow flames at her. Sakura dropped out of the willow, the burning technique missing her by inches. She fired again as she fell, but the blue-clad soldier deflected the arrow with his blade again. His hands began to shape his chakra again, but Sakura pulled 2 arrows from her nearly empty quiver, drew both together, but only halfway to save time. She fired, and her on-the-fly, mid-air, double draw was not as accurate as normal. The upper arrow flew towards the crown of the Shozaku's head instead of his upper chest. The lower arrow was even more off course, aiming for his leg instead of his stomach. In this case, it worked out for the Leaf Jonin. The Shozaku was only able to block the headshot, though the uneven angle at which he struck the arrow left his fingers numb. He tried to grab the other arrow, but her missile had too much power, and it s through both the glove and skin on his palm and fingers, before continuing most of the way through his calf and into the wall, pinning him. Realizing his danger, he reached for his radio, but Sakura fired her last 2 arrows in rapid succession. The first took the short sword from his weakened grip, and the second hit him square in the heart. Sakura summoned her second quiver as she approached the dying warrior. As the last breath rattled out of the Shozaku's lips, his other jutsu ended, and the sergeant's blue uniform reverted to the deep gray of a captain's Shozaku. Sakura slipped her bow back across her body, and knelt to look at the lock. I could pick it, she told herself, but I've already wasted too much time on that guy. I need to get to Hinata. Sakura grasped the handle firmly, and ripped it out of the door and the wall with a single jerk. She did not hear any alarms, but she did not let herself believe that that meant she had not triggered some sort of alert. Vaguely wishing Sol had been a bit more specific about where Hinata was, the pink-haired woman pushed the now loose door inwards and ran inside. Naruto charged straight for the front gate. He recalled, vaguely, Washichi telling him about 2 smaller and more concealed entrances to the Raikage's home, but Uzumaki hadn't paid very close attention. He had expected to be following one of the 5 jonin in the group. Or that Hinata would remember the directions, and be the better choice to find the one of the other doors, if the Tokujo lovers somehow ended up separated from the rest of the team. He had never expected to be all alone, so he aimed for the obvious entrance. He diverted slightly, and instead of heading for the gate in the wall surrounding the manor, he climbed the stockade just out of view of the main opening in the outer barrier. Naruto skidded to a halt and dove flat onto the narrow barricade, when he saw the number of Shizokas guarding the large set of reinforced, double doors. There were 14 that he could immediately count, and he suspect there were at least a few more around the curve of the building. Darn it, he cursed mildly in his head, I don't think I can take that many without making some noise. Besides, I need to save my chakra to help Hinata. Uzumaki looked around, and noticed a balcony on the 3rd floor of the building, out of the view of the anonymous guards. He remembered the Cloud Jonin telling them something about how the windows and terraces were even more reinforced than the doors, specifically to repel shinobi who thought they could get in that way. But Madara was probably on the upper levels with my uncle and Nagato, the blonde youth decided, so that where Hinata'll be. He crawled backwards on the wall, until he could no longer see the sentries, hoping the same also applied. He slipped quietly off the parapet, landing in a small tomato patch. He carefully lined himself up with the edge of the balcony and raced forward. His momentum, the traction of the soles of his sandals, and the slight inward incline of the building let him make it almost halfway to his goal. But he quickly slowed, the jutsu tied to the fortress preventing his chakra from gripping. Uzumaki began to fall, and had to clamp down on a howl of annoyance. Instead he reached into his weapon's pouch, grabbed the first kunai he touched, and plunged it into the stone. By luck or by providence, the dagger he grabbed was one of the black ceramic blades Hinata had given to him for his 16th birthday. The stealth kunai slid easily into the stone, and with much less noise than one its metallic counterparts would have made. Naruto W up hanging 5 feet above the ground. He recognized that the fall would not have hurt him, but it would have almost certainly given away his position. He searched briefly, and found one of the other 2 special blades. He pulled himself up, and plunged the second blade into the side of the building before extracting the first. He continued his climb in that manner. His ascent was not so quick or silent as he would have liked, but the blonde Tokujo made it onto the ledge without being detected. The door was a lattice composite of steel and glass, as defensive as it was decorative. Uzumaki tested his stealth kunai against both substances, but it see neither. He decided if it wasn't for the thickness of the stone that made the outer wall, he would have had an easier time chopping his way through that. He put the blades away, as he considered the possibility of bypassing the portal entirely. I might be able to see a hole around the door with Kitsune's futon raisin blade, he calculated, but that would be noisy and would waste a lot of chakra. Besides, there's no way I could cover that up. He knelt down and glared at the lock. Having taken Hinata's encouraging plauds on the morning of his 16th birthday to heart, and had never learned to pick locks beyond the basic level. Even his unskilled eyes could tell that the complex and well-made D before him was beyond his abilities. His eyes narrowed as he stared at the door, as if trying to get the lock to magically open by means of his uncommon fortune. Okay, Hinata said Lee just breaks down doors, right? He searched his memories, as he tapped the metal experimentally. A Rasengan might not do it, but a Futon Rasengan would. But if I do that here, I'll be sure to attract some kind of attention. She also said Shino has his bugs crawl in the keyhole and open it that way. But my toads aren't small enough to fit in there. As Naruto considered those different methods, his face suddenly brightened. He signed quickly and then whispered. Futon, dead air jutsu. Naruto's chakra grabbed the winds around his left hand, creating an area of total stillness. Asuma Sarutobi had taught him the simple technique as part of his wind release training. The jutsu was only E rank, and had a limited range. Asuma used it mostly to keep breezes from blowing out his matches when he was trying to light a cigarette. But the deceased Jonin had also admitted that the technique was a perfect substitute for earplugs. Uzumaki cupped his left hand around the keyhole, and sent the rest of his attention to his right hand, to his raised pointer finger. Chakra began to twist over the digit. Rasengan, Yukihana's son intoned softly, as the sphere solidified. With the dead air eliminating the noise, Naruto pressed the miniature Rasengan slowly against the keyhole. The enhanced metal resisted, but the orb ground it away, slowly destroying the inner works of the lock. After almost a minute of work, the handle dropped, its support gone. Naruto gently pushed the door in with a self-satisfied grin. Hinata was not in the room, so Naruto ignored the room's furnishings as he headed for the door. He did not notice the exquisitely complex origami sculptures hanging from the ceiling around the edges of the room, nor the familiar black and red robe draped over a chair. The young man just charged into the hall, without even bothering to check if anyone else might have been there. As a result, both he and the 2 guards in front of the next room down received an unexpected surprise. Of the 2 sentries, one was definitely male and the other appeared to be female, but her slender build and the concealing nature of their clothing made it hard to tell. Each of the guards carried a naginator, but with a shortened haft more suited for close quarters combat. They wore off-white shizokas, but the loose sleeves and leggings, along with certain other touches on the masks and uniforms, gave them an almost priestly appearance. Their eyes, hidden behind mirrored goggles, snapped over to Naruto, as did their polearms. Your pains acolytes, the fox-faced youth recalled with a growl, drawing Kitsune. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised to run into you guys here. But what are you guarding? That is none of your concern. Naruto Uzumaki, the female acolyte, confirmed her gender when she spoke, for your life ends here. Before she had finished speaking, her comrade charged forward, stabbing his Naginator at the Leaf Shinobi's chest. Naruto swept the abbreviated polearm aside, and then hammered his left fist into the acolyte's right elbow. Nagato's follower dropped far more than he should have from the blow to his limb, and the blonde teen realized he was clearing the path for his ally. Dual arts, magnetic earth jutsu, she incanted, having completed her hand signs. She released a fist-sized chunk of rock, crackling with purple lightning chakra. The stone arced through the air, aiming at his weapon's pouch. The fox-themed staff blade dipped down, shattering the rock and resisting the electricity. It is as our former sister said, the male acolyte commented, his weapon ignores Raiten techniques. We will have to avoid those dual arts that use lightning. What do you mean, former sister? Naruto asked curiously, you two aren't the acolytes I fought before. The male warrior shook his head. So what happened to them? Uzumaki queried. We are the last two of our order, the female acolyte answered harshly. Within Guki's command structure, our group was unnecessary. So the rest of our brothers and sisters have been converted into Shizokas. Dual arts, frigid burns. Her partner completed his jutsu while she distracted Naruto, and launched a sphere of nearly frozen water, wrapped in a layer of white-hot flames. Cyclone spikes. Naruto's favorite Fuyuten technique tore into the hybrid attack, forcing the flames and liquid into contact. The chakras normalized, and Uzumaki was struck by a ball of lukewarm water, with only moderate force. Last time I took on 3 of you guys at once, the Leaf Ninja threatened, and I wasn't even at my best back then. Now why don't you take a clue from your old buddies, and get out of my way? Sirrah, Toro, a voice emerged from the room, weak yet also commanding. I have nothing to fear from Naruto Uzumaki. If he wishes to see me so much, let him in. Are you certain, Nagato-sama? The kunoichi asked carefully. Yes, the answer came without recrimination. The 2 acolytes nodded. They resumed their places on either side of the door, and the male warrior opened it for Naruto. Inside the dimly lit room, the former Jinchuriki could see the face and frail form of their target. He hesitated. I already abandoned Kakashi-sensei to save Hinata. On the other hand, Nagato is the reason we came here. Now that he's right here in front of me, can I just leave? If go, will the acolytes move him someplace else? But if I don't go, what will happen to Hinata? Uzumaki debated with himself. Okay, if I can convince Nagato to surrender, or knock him out, then maybe Kakashi-sensei, or Kaidi and Temari might be able to get here in time to help Hinata. She can hold out for a little while longer, right? But can I really take that chance? Sol sounded scared, and this is Madara we're talking about. I can't risk her like that. Then his father's sharp words from their first meeting came back to him. Words about the cost and responsibility of being in command. When I am Hokage, I might have to send Hinata or another of my friends into danger. When that time comes, I have to trust in them, and stick to the mission. And now, Nagato is the mission. Naruto squared his shoulders resolutely, and walked slowly into the room. Nagato's room was darker than he expected. It had a simple table with a bench on either side. It would have looked more like meeting or private dining room, if not for the simple bed against the back wall. Nagato sat on the opposite side of the furnishings, watching the younger man enter. He leaned forward against the table, seemingly interested of his guest. But Naruto's eyes were not fooled. Nagato's posture was as much born of exhaustion as of curiosity. Weren't you coming here to rescue your teammate? Nagato asked evenly, as Naruto sat opposite him. Can you afford to waste time here with me? You heard Kakashi-sensei say that our target was here, and that we needed Hinata to find him. Naruto said bitterly. Nagato frowned, but he also nodded. Well, if I just happened to find the target, we wouldn't need Hinata to track him, would we? And I can't abandon my mission, even for the woman I love. Besides, I'm pretty sure Hinata would scold me if I chose her over our assignment, Even if secretly she'd be pretty happy I did it. Your target? Me. The true pain queried dubiously, and Uzumaki indicated his agreement. I thought you were here to Raguki-sensei, the Rinnegan user protested weakly. Yeah, Grammar soon'd figured you guys think that, Naruto shrugged, but the real reason we're here is to rescue you. Rescue me. Nagato objected, I am not a prisoner here. I am Guki-sensei's pupil, and at the risk of sounding immodest, his friend and trusted comrade. You are dying, Naruto insisted pointedly, so we're here to rescue you. I chose this, the former Akatsuki countered with a hint of scorn, it is like you just said about Hinata, I accepted this life, I accepted this mission, so I can hardly quit just because my life is in danger. That's not the same, the fox-faced teen struggled not to shout. Why not? It just isn't. Hinata might be at risk, but it's not a sure thing. Her life isn't being slowly sucked away. But what if it was a sure thing? Nagato objected, ninjas undertake suicide missions. Then the goal would have to be worth the S. And my life for world peace isn't a worthy S. World peace. Naruto snorted, yeah, I've heard all about that, both from Conan and from the Reaper's rantings. But I don't buy it. Peace through war is a stretch at best. But peace through S. No way. S. Nagato tried not to sound unsure. What else do you call the Shizokas? They have to obey Guki. If they don't, they oaths they were forced or tricked into swearing will K them. They can't even turn rogue like a real ninja could. And he's got you brainwashed pretty good, too. I am working for Guki-sensei because I want to. Naruto shook his head, you're doing it because he gives you an out for your guilt. Plus, his ideals are pretty close to yours, so you ignore all the bad things that are happening. He has you convinced it's for the greater good, so you just accept that working with criminals, taking away people's free will, and starting a war are necessary. Like any of you are any better, Nagato's indignant protest sounded almost childish. There have been 3 great ninja wars before now, and a handful of smaller conflicts. Maybe not, Naruto agreed, but some of us are trying to find a better way. And if you sink to the level of everything you claim to hate, will you really be able to change anything, in the end? Nagato slumped further, before forcing out, but Guki-sensei didn't even try another route, Uzumaki interrupted, I mean sure, he had you guys try to steal Madara's plans first. But he must have known that anything Madara thought up was at least as bad as this. And when the Akatsuki fell apart, he went straight to war. He could have taken over the Cloud Village legally and tried to talk to the other villages, to show them that his way might be better. Given everyone a chance to judge for themselves. Tried to make some sort of compromise. Instead, he decided it was easier to just try to force everyone to live his way. You may have a point, Pain's base agreed, but so does Guki-sensei. The other villages would never have accepted him or his ideals. We've all seen too much to believe that. But if you were really the good guys, you would have at least tried, first, right? Why subject everyone to pain, especially the woman you love? It wasn't supposed to be like that. Nagato grabbed the thread and ran with it, if only to direct the subject away from his other, growing doubts. The sage used all 6 paths, all the time, and he didn't suffer from this sort of weakness. Well, I don't know much about that, Naruto grinned in embarrassment, history was never my best subject. But I can say that you're not the sage of the 6 paths. Even if 2 people use the same jutsu, what happens isn't always the exact same, right? And that's assuming your path's jutsu is the same as that guy's. Or maybe your Rinnegan just isn't as strong as his was. Like how Madara's Sharingan is so much better than Itachi's or Sasuke's. Or how Hinata is the only one right now with the Suijin Byakugan. Just, 'cause you have the same bloodline doesn't guarantee you'll get all of the same powers. So I'm just too weak. That sounds about right. That's how it always was. Naruto grabbed his head in frustration, that's not what I meant. I was just trying to say that you are you. You're not the sage, and you're not my uncle. Look, the blonde youth reached across the table and poked the fragile shinobi gently in the shoulder, I guess I'm really trying to ask, what do you want? If Guki were to die today, and told you to do what you thought was best, would you keep doing this? Keep trying to make a better world by erasing this one? Or would you be like Conan, and decide that being with the one you love is more important than putting her or yourself at risk? I don't know. How can you not know? Uzumaki demanded, you knew what you wanted when you took revenge on that Hando guy, right? Have you just been coasting since then, letting Conan, and my uncle, and Madara decided everything for you? His already weak voice faltered, and his Rinnegan stared blankly at Naruto, as he thought about the teen's query, I don't deserve to move forward, not until I am forgiven. I want to be forgiven. But I can't be. Not yet. Naruto sniffed, a feeling of sadness filling him. He remembered how he had felt after Kei Sasuke. And he wondered what it would have been like to sunk in that level of regret and self-loathing for almost 20 years. I forgive you, Uzumaki said softly, and Nagato's eyes suddenly snapped back into focus. What? I forgive you for hurting Sakura. I forgive you for working with Madara to hunt down and Kei me. I forgive you for helping Kei Gaara, and forcing Granny Chiyote herself to bring him back. Then Naruto remembered what Conan had told him about Nagato's history, and I forgive you for not being able to save Yahiko, or all of your other friends in the original Akatsuki. I forgive you for outliving your family. What do you know? Nagato started to lash out, but as he complained, he remembered that Naruto knew all about being the instrument of his best friend's heroic S. That this teen was also the last survivor of his family. But despite the revelation, he shook his head with an weak grin. That's very kind of you, but you don't have any authority to do that. That's why I need Guki-sensei. If he becomes the ruler of the world, he will be able to absolve me of all of my sins. He will shoulder them all himself. Naruto started to argue the point, but then another idea came to him. What about Yahiko? Naruto asked carefully, does he forgive you? Does he have the right to forgive you? Yahiko is Pain stated harshly, he can't forgive me. Yahiko is out there right now, fighting Kakashi-sensei. Naruto stared at him intently. I talked to Ino, and she told me she and her dad both saw a part of the mind and soul of the original person in the paths of pain they fought. So the same thing must be true with your Deva path, right? Nagato looked like he had been S. It seems so obvious when you say it, the scarlet-haired rogue stated with a sense of wonder, but I never even thought of that. Or maybe I didn't want to. Sometimes, it's easier not to move forward, Naruto agreed, trying to sound wise. But what if he doesn't forgive me? Nagato asked his would-be rescuer, a tear running down his cheek. Then at least you'll know, won't you? Then you can legitimately give up, or you can try to earn his forgiveness, or something. Then I guess I'll have to ask. Nagato announced with a renewed strength, his Rinnegan suddenly glowing brightly in the dark room. The scene tore at his heart. Nagato found himself back in the ruined village of the original Akatsuki. The buildings were broken and smoldering, just as they had been when he and Yahiko had returned to find Hanzo's M. But none of the B of his friends and students were present, nor could he see Conan or Hanzo and his men. So, you finally came here, a familiar voice greeted him. Nagato turned so fast that he would have hurt himself had he been in the physical world. Yahiko was just as Nagato remembered him. He was in his dark gray GI, his orange hair slightly shorter, and his darker blue eyes lacked the concentric rings of the Rinnegan. And his grin carried an easy mirth that Nagato had missed for a great many years. So, does this mean you're finally ready to forgive me? Yahiko asked with amusement, but also a hint of sadness. Forgive you? Nagato demanded incredulously, vaguely noticing that his voice had regressed in years. He looked down and saw that he was once again a gangly teen in clothing just like his comrades. Is that a no? Yahiko's taunting was seen by a greater degree of worry. Yes. I mean, no, of course not. Nagato seemed confused. Why would I need to forgive you? You haven't done anything wrong. I did bring the original Akatsuki together, only to let Hanzo S them, the D-teen suggested, pretending to be nonchalant. But if you hadn't done that, most of them would have D years earlier from starvation, exposure, or disease, Nagato protested, and you didn't just save their lives, you gave them a purpose. They were happy, while they were with us. Besides, the boy who would be pain looked unhappy, I failed him too. No, Yahiko argued, I was the leader. I was the one who chose to keep stealing work from the Rain Village. And it was all my idea in the first place. If I had chosen to side with Conan, when Jiraiya-sensei offered to bring us to the Leaf, we might all be alive and happy, living as Leaf Shinobi. If I had listened to you and Conan about not antagonizing Hanzo, he might have kept on ignoring us. And that's only for starters. The too happy rogue returned to the first topic. I forced you to help me K myself, because I couldn't think of any other way to save you and Conan from Hanzo's goons. And that hurt you a lot. But that's also my fault. Nagato did not deny his friend this time. If I had better understood my powers, I could have done something. Or if I hadn't hesitated to throw away that kunai, you wouldn't have had the chance. And Conan would have and neither of us wanted that. The Rinnegan user couldn't argue that point. And worst of all, I interfered with your relationship with Conan. Yahiko actually showed embarrassment as he said that. Wah. Nagato stammered, totally confused. What are you talking about? You really still doubt her? You really think she settled for you? Or that I was in love with her? The original soul of Deva Payne's body briefly sounded exasperated at his friend. I was just so sick of the fact that neither of the two of you could just spit it out. You both had it so bad for the other, but neither of you ever said anything. So I thought that if I made a play for Conan, one of you would tell me to back off. Then I was going to force whoever cracked to tell me why, and then run to the other one to pretend to apologize. That way I could have got everything in the open. Except you were ready to step out of the way for me. Yahiko suddenly switched from apologizing and explaining to accusing, and Conan kept humoring me, I think because she was afraid of breaking up the team. You two were so fragile. Unfortunately, before I could find a way to fix it, you know. The orange-haired youth made the motion of see his stomach. But you two managed to get together anyway, so I guess it worked out. It didn't work out, Nagato complained, suddenly aging a few years, as he turned away from his friend. You were by my hand. It was my fault. I wasn't strong enough to save you, to save anyone. You're contradicting yourself, Yahiko said sadly. If you weren't strong enough, how could it have been your fault? The Rinnegan user paused, unable to argue the point. He looked down at the smiling teen and prompted desperately, what should I do? I can't make your decisions for you. The orange-haired boy suddenly turned stern. If you ask me, you've let too many other people control your destiny. The people who ran you out of your village, me, Conan, Hanzo, Guki, Madara. The only things you've ever really decided for yourself were to save Conan from that jerk merchant, and to Hanzo to revenge me. What do you want to do? I want to live, Nagato sobbed. I want to be with Conan. But I can't. I don't deserve it. I haven't earned forgiveness. Nagato, why would anyone need to forgive you? You haven't done anything wrong. Yahiko parroted his friend's earlier words. Then he touched his friend's arm comfortingly, his fingers not coincidentally brushing the single chakra control rod in Payne's current mental manifestation. But if you had, I would have forgiven you a long time ago, the original of the Deva path concluded gently. Nagato smiled, and nodded. Then his face fell again. If I do this, you will. Nagato couldn't finish the statement. I'm already This is just a portion of my soul that your jutsu called back. This will probably be a good thing for me. I'll finally get to see what kind of hotties there are in the afterlife. Nagato could not help but chuckle. Goodbye, Yahiko, he said thankfully, embracing his friend. The spectre allowed it for a few seconds, then pushed him off. Save the touchy-feely for Conan, he taunted with mock disgust. Then he smiled happily, and said, goodbye, Nagato. Naruto tried to look nonchalant, as Nagato's eyes opened again. The Rinnegan bearer smiled contented, and took a few deep breaths. Then he looked at his guest again. What was the deal you made with Conan again? He asked openly. Naruto stammered in surprise. You two get decommissioned, but you get to live freely in the Leaf Village, under our protection. Oh, and Grammar Sunid will treat you personally, to make sure you recover from being pain as much as possible. That seems more than fair, Nagato agreed. I think that calls for a gesture of goodwill on my part. But I'm going to need your help. Naruto looked bewildered, but nodded his consent nevertheless. Nagato reached for his right forearm with his left hand, and with an expression of suppressed agony, withdrew the control rod closest to his wrist. The human path, Nagato said wistfully, Taira Hanashi, a jonin from the mines village. Taira was an excellent talker, and fit well with the soul-stirring nature of that realm. He set the gray bar on the table, and looked up at Naruto. I don't have the chakra now to break it, to release him. Can I ask you to do it for me? Sure. What do I do? Destroy it with a jutsu. The control rods are strong, so it will take more than a cyclone spike to do it. Simple as the rods in half would be enough, but the more thoroughly you destroy them, the faster the paths will be freed. Freed, as in? Naruto prompted, thinking of two possibilities. Return to death. They will be freed from my control, but they will not last for more than a minute or two without my life force. My lord, the voice of the male acolyte suddenly asked through the still open door, are you certain you wish to go through with this? I am, Nagato answered openly. Is that a problem? Not at all, Pain-sama, the female acolyte sounded overjoyed. Then you should not call me that anymore. Nagato's voice was full of relief. Pain is about to die. Rasengan, Naruto finished forming the sphere while Nagato and his guards spoke, and pushed it carefully onto the bar. The spiraling orb splintered the dark material, and the ends that it did not touch began to break apart on their own. Yugito ni, Nagato expositioned as he removed the remaining rod from his right arm, Jonin of the Hidden Cloud. Even before the Bayou was sealed in her, she had a strong connection to animals, and becoming the Jinchuriki of the Two-Tails cat only deepened that bond. Guman, Tokujo of the Hidden Claw, he removed the first bar from his left arm after Naruto destroyed Yugito's link to him. His love for giving and receiving pain made him an unfortunately ideal candidate for the Naraka path. Hagen Senshi, Jonin of the Hidden Rain. When my first two paths and I fought her to reach Hanzo, I could feel both her noble warrior spirit, and her latent Tetsu Kabushi Kekkei Genkai. After her master fell, I returned and made Hagen my Asura path. Naruto destroyed the two first divine paths, and watched carefully as Nagato removed the last control rod. Then the Rinnegan user shook his head. I will free this one myself, he told the young man, Yahiko, no rank, of the Akatsuki township. My best friend and comrade. He set the rod amidst the disintegrating remains of the other four, then held his hand above it, and took a deep breath. Shinra Tensei, Nagato intoned, and the cylinder shattered. The Rinnegan user shuddered and closed his eyes. For a moment, Naruto thought he had passed out. Then he opened his eyes, and smiled weakly. I'm going to need some sort of assistance to leave this place. I'm not sure I have the strength now to walk out of this building on my own, more or less make it to the Konohagakure. And I'm not sure how Guki-sensei will react to me leaving. Will you help me, Naruto-kun? And you too, Sura, Toro. Sure thing, Uzumaki grinned. Of course, my lord, the two acolytes said in unison. Naruto offered Nagato his shoulder, while the two clerical warriors took up defensive positions. Sol, Sakura said softly, getting the attention of the white ball of fluff in the alcove. Sakura Dono. The albino squirrel unfurled, and looked up at the human. She sniffed the air carefully, and studied the medic, before deciding she was the genuine article. Thank the gods, Sakura Dono. Hinata Dono is. I know, the medic see her off, I got your message. I'm here to help. I need you to take me to where Hinata is. It was only luck that I found you. Of course, the familiar nodded in relief, it's not far. The squirrel girl scampered off, and the Jonin followed. Sol turned left at the intersection, and then froze. What the heck are you? The blue Shozaku demanded of the rodent. Then Sakura rounded the corner, already pulling her bow off her shoulder. Santo, he started to call out to the young woman. Sakura inclined her head to Sol, who started running again. The white-furred squirrel turned right twice as she moved around the outside of a large room. She stopped in front of the door. Hinata Dono and Madara are inside. It's some sort of training room. Sakura opened the door. Inside the remains of the dojo, Madara had backed Hinata nearly into a wall. Which might not have been the worst place to be, except the undying black flames of Amaterasu were eating away at the metal plate behind her. If the pale beauty touched them, they would spread to her. Madara obviously knew that. He seemed to be taking sadistic pleasure as the S of his chakra katana and flame claw clanged off Ginmaki. Each blow drove her closer to the shadow inferno. Hinata! Sakura shouted. Madara glanced back at the intrusion, even as Tsunde's apprentice released her first arrow. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.